It is time to get started. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to those of you in the United Kingdom. A very good afternoon to you. And for those of you in the US, we see there are many. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. Joining us for today's IBT Online's Go Global webinar series. Today's webinar is all about going global, building and marketing websites for India. That is growing your exports and business there. Today, I have the huge pleasure of being here in London in our offices here with Susanna Hardy, who is our Director of Client Services, and with Nalin Patel and Sri Hari Mara of Tractus, who join us respectively from Pondicherry and Chennai in India. I'd just like to tell you that we're very grateful for having them join us today because they have recently had something of a cyclone. They've had winds of over 120 kilometers and some network issues, electricity issues, and some 40,000 trees down. So Nalin and Sri, thank you for joining us. And today we will be delivering a very useful webinar all about building and marketing websites in India. So it's a great program for you. I know I've seen the work that has gone in the preparation here, and the objective is to provide you with lots of useful information and lots of takeaways to help you grow your sales, grow your brands, and grow your businesses respectively in India. The webinar has got some key points and we'll be touching on those later in the table of contents, but before we do that, a few notes on housekeeping. Please do know that this is a webinar. It is one in a series called Go Global Webinars. If you go to our website, www.ibt.onl/resources and webinars, you can see a list of webinars to come and those that we've held over the past 2 years. So it's a rich resource of webinars. This webinar will be 45 minutes long, a brief introduction by myself, and then I will be handing over to Susanna, Nalin and Sri, today's expert guest speakers, who will be presenting and providing you with all of the details and information related to this subject matter. Do know that we have 4 polls, so please be attentive. We'll be asking you to participate. Let's share that information. We'd love to have your opinion, your views. There will be 4 polls that we'll be flagging up, and there will be question time at the end. So in your screen there, where you see underneath polls, there's some questions. Please don't hesitate to click the plus sign and we will moderate and answer those questions during and after, and also if we don't get around to it in the days following this. There is a chat box if you'd like to share some ideas and responses. Don't hesitate to use it. And at the end of this webinar there will be a brief survey. There will be 6 quick questions. We'd love your feedback. And finally, do know that this webinar is being recorded and a copy will be sent to you automatically on Friday, so look out to your email inbox there. So I think now it is time to get started. So I'm going to push this little button. I've got some noises for us all. So here we go. This is to get us all going. This is how we're going to be starting our program. Right, let's start off with Susanna. If we can get Susanna to, there we go, Susanna. Susanna is our host presenter for IBT Online, and we're lucky to have Susanna with us today. Susanna heads up our global operations, focusing on helping companies use the internet, and that means IBT Online's global range of services to develop businesses internationally. Susanna, as you can see at the bottom left-hand screen there, is international. Susanna is half German, half British. Susanna was educated, has lived and worked in the US. That's over in New York, as well as in Europe, in Brussels, London, and Paris. Susanna speaks German, English, Dutch, and French. Susanna brings her expertise today on international business development, but with the online focus. Nalin, there you go. You see the picture of Nalin. Nalin is the consulting manager for India for Tractus Asia Limited. Nalin helped set up that office back in 2008 and since has led his team, developing a reputation as a market expert in both the public and private sectors for companies that are looking to grow their businesses in India. And Sri, there's an image of Sri there. Sri, senior analyst at Tractus Asia. Sri is the senior and is based over in India, as I said, and has helped many, many companies and organizations to develop their businesses. He adds value to the projects for clients in a wide variety of sectors. Notably, he's very, very strong on industrial machinery, ICT, and life sciences, as well as aerospace and textiles. Just 2 words quickly on IBT Online. IBT is a private company. IBT stands for International Business and Technologies. Those are online technologies, and we've been in business since 2008. IBT Online provides website localization and international online marketing services. So we help our companies grow their sales and their brands and their businesses online and globally. We work with our clients all the way through the process from strategic planning and then managing the online programs all the way to the delivery of search engine optimization and social media and, of course, reporting. Tractus Asia is a strategy and operations management consulting firm with a tagline that says building business in India. Tractus is a full-service market entry and expansion practice, and Nalin will be telling you a lot more about this as we go through the webinar. So as you can imagine, putting the 2 together, IBT Online and Tractus, strength and expertise, knowledge and understanding that is both online and offline to help you grow your sales and brands across India. So let's dive into the core subject. I'm now going to hand over to Susanna, and I thank you very much. Susanna.
Thank you very much, John, and a great pleasure to be here today and talk with everybody. And I see as well we've got some of our attendees even from Asia. I appreciate you being up so late. It's great. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. Nalin's going to give you a little quick snapshot of sort of India today, the main prospects, the main business drivers, and Sri's going to be talking a bit more about some of the demographics that are going on there and factors for success. Then I'm going to be handling section 2 and 3 about building and marketing your websites in India and what that looks like. And then we've got some time scheduled for some questions at the end. So I would concur with John, just encourage you to drop any questions or chats that you might have question by. So I'm going to hand over to Nalin now, if that's okay. Nalin?
Hi, thank you, Susanna. Let me introduce to you Tractus. Tractus founders and directors are US Americans. Our head office is in Bangkok, Thailand, and we have 8 offices across Asia in China, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, Myanmar, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Our team of 60 plus is multinational, multicultural, with a deep and wide knowledge base in different sectors. We are a boutique consultancy company with more than 20 years of experience in foreign direct investment and consultancy for Western companies looking to enter or expand in the Asian market or Asian companies planning to go west. Over the years, we have worked on more than 1,000 projects and supported investments to the tune of US $5 billion plus in foreign direct investment for public and private sector clients. Next, please. Tractus supports 4 different practice groups. We actually work for economic developments and represent some of the US and EU states and agencies in Asia. We support them in their clients when it comes to market survey, market entry options, partner or dealer search, government or trade missions, trade promotion, FDI attraction. In strategy and consultancy implementation, we have companies enter the Asian market and one of the selection firms in this region. Starting from market research, regulatory analysis, strategy development, we support companies in site selection, government approvals, and licensing to project management. Our corporate finance practice, we just started 5 years ago, helps in fundraising and private placements, including financial modeling, analysis, planning, evaluation, and corporate deal structure. Last but not least, one of the important practices is the Tractus Business Incubator. Business Incubator allows new companies seeking to minimize initial investment risks to quickly establish low-risk startup operation in Asia. A dedicated team directed by our senior manager, new companies' business development efforts, and also execute day-to-day business operations, including recruiting, office space utilization, business and strategy development, as well as manufacturing, startup, and operations management. The cross-practice skills overlap create a unique competitive advantage. The economic development practice leverages skills and experience gained from the strategic consult, business incubator, and corporate finance practices. These synergies created thereby benefit our clients and increase our efficiency. Now we will start talking about a little bit about India. So to give you some India. India is a democracy with a vibrant economy, rich history, and kaleidoscopic diversity when it comes to culture, languages, and geography. Although India is only the 7th largest country in size, it is the world's 2nd most populated country. There are more than 2,000 ethnic groups in India with different caste systems. The population 1.2 billion and growing is divided into many religions, with Hinduism covering 79%, Islam about 14%, Christianity about 1.7%, and others like Sikhism, Buddhism, Jainism, and others. The caste system is still alive but not formally recognized or nearly as rigid as it used to be. However, slowly a new globalized culture is also making a firm base in the country. Although English and Hindi are most popular, there are more than 25 languages. And when I talk about languages, these are languages because they have each a different script and they are hardly related to each other. This ends up with India having more than 1,000 local languages and dialects. India is a country of extremes, of the haves and have-nots, in nowhere as evident as broad as in India. Geographically, it is a subcontinent stretching over 625 plus biogeographic zones. It has world's highest mountains, a vast coastline, forests and deserts, diverse flora and fauna, and all kinds of climatic conditions. However, this diversity, India is proud to be the world's largest democracy with a bicameral parliamentary system. It is a federal constitutional republic governed under a parliamentary system consisting of 29 states and 7 union territories. Delhi is up north, the political capital of India. Mumbai is the financial capital in India, and Greater China, Ahmedabad, and region around the capital have large manufacturing areas, whereas Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Pune are the ICT centers. India opened economically in the 90s, and after the first few years of fast growth, there has been ups and downs. These were due to global economic crisis, however, more due to internal corruption scams and unstable policy environment. However, since 2014, the new Modi government is campaigning hard to attract foreign investment and drive the Make in India initiative to build India into a manufacturing hub. There are other campaigns such as Digital India to empower people through digitalization, products to clean India, national agriculture market, a recent policy initiative to bring about greater security for farmers and better returns for their produce. So the recent part, the Bharatiya Janata Party is the one in power. Although it is a religious party, we have a very strong leader in Modi who is bringing the country to, wants to bring the country to a growth in the economy. I should now pass on to Srihari to talk about a little bit more on the Indian demographics.
Now, Nalin, just before we do that, if I may jump in, thank you so much. That was very interesting. I think we would just have a quick poll before we hand to Sri. So please, everybody, if you are ready, here comes our first poll, which I'm launching now. It really is, are you currently doing business in India? Please give us your feedback. This will help us better situate the whole webinar and the follow-up. So if it's yes on your own, yes with a partner, yes online, thinking about it or no. So I'm going to give you some feedback of the results I've got here. The largest block, 40%, 45% are saying no, 29% are thinking about it, 21% are saying yes on their own. Well, look, I mean, I thank you. That's very interesting. That closes our first poll. And with that little horn, I will indeed close this poll and hand back to Sri. Over to you, Sri.
Thank you very much, John and Nalin. Hello everyone, a real pleasure to be with you today. My name is Srihari and I work along with Nalin on all our projects in India. In today's session, I'll be taking through India's key economic trends, foreign direct investments, and the key success factors in this market. If you see the chart on the slide, you can see that majority of the Indians fall under the 35 years group, and India's demographic make it one of the youngest nations in the world by 2020, and over half of its 1 billion plus population will be below the age of 25 by 2020. The increased household income and the sheer size of the young working population will increase demand for higher quality products that foreign companies can potentially offer. The country also has a large number of labor force suited for manufacturing jobs that can cater to the demand for foreign companies looking to enter India. There are over 25,000 higher education institutes in India. However, most of them lack quality, and these are issues that needs to be addressed, as several industry players feel that the graduates are missing out on what the industry needs. The highly fragmented nature of the market presents possibilities for education sector to collaborate and partner with foreign in specific areas. Next slide, please. So now let's look a little bit about the economy and the latest trends that's happening in India. So this graph shows the spending by global middle class. So in 2009, you can see that the total spent was around $21 trillion. And in 2020, this is expected to increase to 35 trillion. And by 2030, the total spending will cross 55 trillion. If you closely see in 2009, India holds for less than 1%. It's not even seen in the graph. It's less than 1%, and by 2020, this is expected to increase to 11% and 23% by 2030. Another interesting observation is that the spending in North America is coming down from 26% in 2009 to just about 10% in 2030. Same can be seen for Europe as well. The spending levels is down from 38% to around 20%. By 2020, India is projected to be the world's third largest middle-class consumer market behind China and the US. Next slide, please. Now let's look a little bit about the foreign direct investments that's coming to India. So with around 697 greenfield projects and with an investment of $63 billion, India was ranked #1 in terms of inbound investments during 2015. Most of the foreign direct investments into India is from Mauritius and Singapore. The majority of these investments is represented by the holding company of Mauritius and Singapore, set up by American and European firms. The reason behind voting this way is due to the tax treaty between both the countries and India that stipulates a tax dividend. And on average, you can see that over $35 billion of FDI was invested in India from 2009 until 2015. And the main sectors is coming from service sector is the main sector, 16%, followed by ICT, that's IT, and followed by infrastructure and automobile. Next slide, please.
Shri, before we do that, I think it's time for a quick jump in for the second poll, if I may. That was very interesting. Huge numbers, very, very valuable and useful. But here we go, please. Is everybody ready? Poll number 2, launching now. Well, it's about you, please. As always, we're very interested to have feedback from you. Which sector does your company operate in? Do you consider yourself, are you in manufacturing? Are you in IT, pharma, healthcare, or services? Or could we just go other? So I can give you feedback. today we're getting 33% of you are saying you're in manufacturing, 36% are in services, and 8% in IT and 8% in pharma. Well, that was very, very interesting. This is all being recorded, and of course you will be getting this feedback. So with that, I close out poll number 2. A quick horn. There we go. And that's that close. And Sri, I hand back to you.
Thanks, John. So now let's look at some of the factors that foreign firms should consider before entering in India. As with most countries, India has its own unique manner in which business is conducted. Success here can depend on appreciating and understanding the cultural aspects, and in addition to patience, long-term commitment, personal attention, and involvement. Although India is a promising economy, foreign businessmen should bring in time and patience in India. One should not come to make the quick buck in this market. You need to have the right expectations. The consumer numbers are huge, so is the competition from both domestic and foreign firms. Operating in India requires understanding of the local market. Companies need to do their homework in order to know a host of tax, IP, and regulatory issues. If you are currently working with an Indian partner, they will all promise everything, and you often hear, "No problem, sir, all is going well." And this is when you should actually question and do some more research about if things are going well. Finally, even with a well-defined agreement, at the end of the day, you need to have a clear strategy and maintain strong relationship with your Indian business associates. With all these issues, India is still promising to be a great business opportunity, and many business companies from US, Europe, and other parts have already turned into this vast country, taking advantage of the cost-effective basis and set up offices and factories in this market. Would like to pass it to Susanna. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sri. That was fantastic. And Nalin as well. A great sort of landscape brush over of India. Such a huge market. Now I'm going to be talking particularly about the internet and the web in India, what it looks like, and what I can say in a nutshell, it is huge, changing, very dynamic, and very specific, very India specific. The first slide I wanted to show you was just to show you about the number of people getting on the web in India at the moment. And India, basically over 100 million people joined the web for the first time in 2016. And that puts India at the second largest internet market in the world. After China, well above the United States. And at current rates, it'll probably be about double the US size by the end of 2017. Now, what's interesting to me, though, is that still with 462 million people on the internet, that's only a 35% market share. So only 35% of India actually is on the web. This is a really low number. I mean, compare that to Brazil. Brazil's got over 60%. And obviously countries like the US or the UK, it's more like 90%. So, India still, okay, it's large numbers, but still a long way to go. And I think that's one of the key things that I was intrigued at, when you start looking at the Indian web scene. So the other point, I guess, has also been made a little bit by Nalin and Shrihari. As one of the youngest demographies in the world, with 2/3 of the population under 35 and things, it's exactly the same on the internet. About 75% of internet users are below the age of 35 in India. So those are things to be taking into account when you're looking at building and marketing online in India. Now the big challenge, and there are lots and lots, people list huge long lists of challenges about internet in India. It really comes down to infrastructure. There's just not enough hardware out there. There are very few public Wi-Fi spots. Broadband connections are not great. They're okay in the middle of a city. Even in the suburbs, they're not good, let alone the rural areas. So, there's some, in terms of infrastructure, mobile internet is really pushing the boundaries on that, although mobile internet connection still has some problems as well. Now, I wanted to talk directly about local websites. What do we mean when we talk about an India-specific and localized website? Well, when we talk about that, we try and break it down into like 10 components of what a localized website looks like, or what a localized website could look like in India. And I guess the first thing we say is that you're going to have to look at country-specific, India-specific content, so that not all your text, but certainly look at your text and look at your content and say, is the terminology correct? Is the currency correct? Is the measurement, are the measurements correct? What about the case studies? Are they relevant? So there's some cultural, some vocabulary, some measurements, some monetary, other systems that all need to be adapted to India specifics. And translating it, it's a matter of putting it into the country content for that. The next point really is about about design and pictures. And here one has also to be quite culturally sensitive. And I just put these two images of what a road can mean to different people. And so I thought a road to someone in Scotland looks like a slow thing that you drive on the left-hand side and it's a windy curve over moor. And to someone in the United States could conjure up pictures of Route 66. So, there's a difference in terms of the country-specific design as well. The third point we'd like to really point out is about multinational sites with flag icons typically. We typically use the flags rather than the words. And these really help navigation and highlight the fact that your company is a multinational. Highlight the fact that you have an international, a global presence. So those are the top three. Now, the next four, geolocation is incredibly important. It basically automatically detects browser language or IP addresses to redirect your web visitor to the relevant site. So, for example, someone coming on in India would be redirected automatically to the Indian site. That ensures that the prospective client or your distributor has the right user experience. Then after that, mobile friendly, and we talked about how young the Indian internet world is. It is also, as I mentioned about the infrastructure, it is also one of the most mobile-enabled markets that I know of. It is a similar mobile penetration to, for example, China, which means over 70%, 70% of online searches in India today are mobile. It's really jumped the stage of having a PC at home. Many people don't have a PC at home. They have a mobile phone and a smartphone. Then the next is really sort of a technical point, which is content. This is the software that you build websites on. You have to make sure that your content management system is fit for purpose in the Indian market. Not all content management systems are able to have multilingual management systems, are user-friendly across different markets. So you need to make sure that your CMS is fit for purpose across India. The next one is hosting, and we really recommend that you host locally. It helps your speed, upload and download, and it also helps search engines find you. After that, we would talk about regulatory requirements, and here the Indian internet scene is still pretty loose with regards to regulatory requirements and data protection, but this is something that is coming fast up on the horizon. It's already very present. If you've got a European site, so you probably know that already. You're beginning to understand it in the United States, and in India it is certainly on the horizon, coming forward with the initiatives put forward by the government in Digital India. There are parts of that requirements for data protection, traceability, and authorship. So again, we would say build your site right from the start with that in mind. That is something that will become increasingly present over the next few years. Number 9, and really in many ways we often start with this, is your domain name. And I've put in the bottom of the slide there, the place where you can register your domain name. We would strongly advise you to buy that up right away. If you're looking at getting into the Indian market, expanding your business online, the first thing you got to do is buy your domain name in India. Then finally, there's no good building a fantastic website if you're not going to use it. So from the very beginning, make sure that you have a strategy for using online social media. And social media in India is quite different from social media, for example, in the United States. I have a brief slide on that later.
Susanna.
John, do we have time?
Yeah, we do, please. My third poll, and there you go. When we were talking about takeaways, there's a great takeaway from Susanna. One takeaway today, go grab your Indian URL. If you're going to go there, do business, grab your URL today. Here we go. Here's the third poll, which I'm launching right now. Please, everybody, we would love to have your feedback. So I'm launching it. Do you have localized websites for your export markets? Are you on top of the domain subject? Are you using localized native translation speakers to get this done? Is this all mobile enabled? And how about the search engine optimization and social media? So please give us your feedback. And I can tell you right now, a lot of people are saying that they've got the mobile covered and the SEO covered. 50% of covering the domains. So it is that's a very impressive. I would say all in all, about half of today's attendees are saying that they're online in localized websites. So there we go. That's the third poll closing. Susanna, can I hand back to you?
Thank you, John. That's actually there's very encouraging numbers. Well done. If you're well down the road. I wanted to focus a little bit about localization for language. This is something that Nalin touched on briefly when he talked about the number of languages you have in India. I too, and there's thousands of them, and if you're looking at a website and strategy, how on earth do you do this? How do you manage that? So there's really, I think, two things going on here, which is very interesting that I found. The first is that English is the lingua franca, the main business language for much of India. Now, that doesn't mean, however, that it's going to translate well into business language online. And here's where the difficulty comes. Now, the first wave of people who came online tended to be very, very much the urban business community. And they were very at ease in English, and that got you your first big wave of up to, I don't know, 300, 400 million people. And it's interesting because at that point, Google is the main search engine in India. Google is dominating and has 96, 97% market share in India, and this was up until about 18 months ago. About 18 months ago, Baidu, the Chinese search engine giant, starts to say, well, China's doing pretty well. I've got that under control. Let me look at my big neighbor. This is a huge market. And they start putting out website search engines and website search engine optimization, not just for English Indian sites, but for non-English Indian sites. So they start putting it out for basically for Hindi, but for lots and lots of different ones. For about they've now gotten about up to 11 different languages, the main languages, and they've just actually launched their mobile market app in Bengali, Marathi, Tamil, Urdu, Telugu, and lots of other languages. And they are just grabbing market share from Google. So Google's market share has gone from 96% to something like 80%. On an exploding market, because Baidu is correctly saying we can better localize and respond to a market that is looking for an Indian, not an English language, and that's, I think, a very good lesson that you're getting in localization and how to localize a website for that. And if I was looking at some of the numbers from the Internet and Mobile Association of India, the IMAI, and they were basically saying, that the amount of Hindi content has basically doubled in the last 12 months. as more and more companies have a similar strategy. Now, most of our clients are still at the stage and very happy if they can get a really great website into English Indian. And the point I also want to make is that English in India is different from English in the UK, and it's different from English in the United States. So just as there's a difference between UK English and US English, there's also a difference. And one of the best examples I can get of this was I was speaking to a friend of mine who's from India, from Mumbai, and they were saying to me, okay, well, let's just get that meeting a prepone. I said, what? And they said, oh, prepone. What is that? Well, postpone is when you postpone a meeting, you delay it, and a prepone is when you bring it forward. And this is apparently a common word. I've never heard of it before. And when we're looking at websites for our clients who are looking to get a really strong online presence in India, we do have to adapt the English to make sure that it reads properly, that it is understandable, that it is culturally sensitive to the market. Do a quick overview as well about the other major thing that's happening is e-commerce in India, and this has gone from barely existing to absolutely enormous market in the space really of three years. Similarly to the graphs you've seen about internet penetration rates and things that we had earlier in this presentation, there's similar graphs about e-commerce. And I think we've actually written a couple of blogs about this. I think if you want to learn more about just the e-commerce side alone, track Amazon. Now that is, I mean, Jeff Bose has been the CEO of Amazon, has been very clear in saying that he expects India to be Amazon's second largest market in the world, possibly even its #1 market in the world within 5 years. And he's putting his money where his mouth is as well. They've invested $5 billion in the Indian e-commerce market, and they only started in 2013. So 2013 till now, $5 billion later, they have changed the way, and they have sort of jet propelled the e-commerce market in India. Now Alibaba, the great big Chinese giant, is fast on their tails, and moving equally quickly with an online investments. And what's interesting is that both these giants have domestic challengers, the two biggest ones being Snapdeal and Flipkart, although there's a lot of shareholders that overlap in all of this. And in fact, Alibaba, for example, is a shareholder in Paytm, and so there's a lot of cross sections here. What's really interesting, though, is to see just how it's changing and making the internet a very more vibrant. India, therefore, is growing very quickly. It's growing in sophistication, and you can see this through the e-commerce people, and it is growing in terms of average spend as well. I think the final point I just want to make about e-commerce as a driver for internet use is how the Alibaba are shaping Indian business terms. They basically, because of them and because of those investments, they've had to figure out ways to deal with the infrastructure, or the lack of infrastructure, the lack of credit card payment, the lack of strong broadband. They've been basically finding other ways and thinking in a very lateral way to deal with all of these challenges that India presents and still make good business sense. So this has also shaped how India looks online. So just the last little slide I wanted to show here about social media, and in a sense this is very similar to what we saw both about internet penetration and e-commerce, both in terms of the size, the speed of the uptake in India, but also somehow that it's still very nascent. So India is now the single largest market in the world for Facebook, at 190 users of Facebook at the moment in 2016. That being said, India has about 12% of its internet users use social media. So in terms of a company, you can say that you don't have to have an online, social media Facebook page in India yet. But given everything that's going on in India, given the speed of what's going on, be prepared to get one within the next 12 months. My guess is if we do this webinar in 12 months' time, we're going to be saying, well, it's double, and guess what? India is now got a serious social media platform of its own as well. So there you go. There's a very, very brief snapshot of India online and how to look at your website for that.
Well, in that case, Susanna, can I jump in for our last poll? Thank you so much. Very interesting. Lots of nuggets there, lots to think about. And while we're doing that, the last poll, which I'm launching now, please, is everybody ready? Here you go. How do you market internationally? So there are routes to market, ways to go, on and offline. How about trade shows? Are you active in trade shows? I'm thinking about India, trade shows in India. Are you online and social media? How about paid advertising? Are you currently working with and through distributors or manufacturers, reps and VARs, or visiting prospective international customers? So let me give you feedback. 100% are doing trade shows. I'm pleased to see that. That's very strong. 75% are saying that they are actually online and social media. That's great. That's growing. We know the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has a view on that puts it at #1 as the #1 marketing and sales tool for corporations. 60% through distributors and 73% are visiting. That's very interesting. I'm going to close this poll, our last poll. Thank you for your feedback. It's very appreciated. I'm going to close this now and hand back to Susanna.
Thank you very much, John. I just want to leave you sort of with one message in terms of localized websites. Are they necessary or not? And I guess I just, as a New Yorker, I just wanted to bring up another New Yorker here and say, Woody Allen for me just said it all. If you are interested in the Indian market, if you think there's a strong potential for your business in the Indian market, Tractus just said, get an Indian partner, and we would say also get online. It's important to just be there. Just make sure that people find you, make sure they recognize you, make sure that they like what they see, and they trust you, that whole trust and brand development happens that is so necessary in the buying experience, and that can really only happen online today. So with that, I just want to close my part of the session, just leaving you with a few points about some resources. We have, as John mentioned, we have some more webinars coming up. We also have a lot of resources on our website that you're very welcome to download, and get you thinking about on the online world. And other resources, as John said, you will be getting a copy of the slide deck, so you can look through some of the things that we use regularly for updating our own information. And finally, I hope I've left enough time for a few questions. John, do we have time for questions? Are there any questions?
Yes, indeed, of course, absolutely. We have to regardless. There are some great questions that have come in, and I do love that Woody Allen piece. Yeah, there you go. Just show up. Be there online, be there offline, and you will ultimately be successful. Be patient, as Sri was saying. So I've got a few questions here, which I'm just going to take. I'm going to only take 6. Essentially, there were almost the first 6 in. So the first one I'm going to hand out there, and I'm going to say, hey, Nalin, please. It's from a US manufacturer who are looking to export to India, but they're concerned about the payment processes, getting paid. Nalin, do you have a word on payments from India, please?
Yes. According to experience and according to what we have seen, the payment morale in India is pretty low. So we suggest that for export payments, you try to see whether you can get part of the payment as advance before you start your manufacturing or any project, and the rest of the payment before you ship out the goods. And or you could try for a confirmed letter of credit. That is what my suggestion would be.
Nalin, thank you for that. That sounds very, very practical. That sounds like good, solid advice. I'll flip over, Susanna. Another US attendee today says they're thinking about it, and they're saying, how do we get started online in India? Where do you start?
Yeah, well, that's okay. Just give me a call. No, seriously, the first thing to do is to register your domain name. make sure that you own it. Don't give it to a distributor or someone else. That is your brand. That is your company. Don't give it away. It's worth something. So .in, the domain name is in the slide deck. After that, we would take a good look at your website. We'd look at it, see what content we could reuse, take the same design, tweak it a bit, upload the content onto your IN, onto your India website, localize it, make sure it's fit for purpose for the Indian market, and then get a strategy going forward. Typically, that takes us, depends how many bells and whistles per site, but let's say on a simple site without too much e-commerce platforms on it, you could do it within 2 months. If you have a lot of e-commerce and separate areas, secure areas for distributors, you'd be looking at an additional month, more or less.
Wow.
Thanks,
Okay. Yeah. So, Susanna, thank you. I'm going to hop back to Nalin. This is from a UK company, and they're concerned. Right. Everybody seems to be concerned about risk here. Well, there you go. It's all about risk business. IP, intellectual property. Nalin, could you give us a quick word on IP in India?
Yes, IPR is still an issue in India, although theoretically there are laws and regulations to safeguard you. In reality, this is not always the case. We have seen in the recent years that often foreign companies have lost patent rights in India. This has especially been the case in pharmaceutical industry, and big companies like Novartis, Bayer, Pfizer have lost cases against Indian companies. And these have been court cases which have been accordingly judged by some of the judiciary. And we find that maybe it has, and without directly pointing fingers, we think that often the Indian partners, they are managing to go to corruption and go to the judiciary and try to get a positive response for themselves. So IPR is still is an issue, and you need to be careful to approach that.
Nalin, thank you. Wow, crosses over to what Sri was saying yesterday, just earlier about when all is going well, be careful. Do follow that up. Well, there you go. And I'm sure a part of it is, please don't hesitate to take contact with Tractus if you have IP issues. I'm sure that they could provide a support, that's insight and support. Susanna, as we move to the last few questions, this one is about, do I have to have a website in India to do online marketing in India? What's the answer?
Interesting question. Well, theoretically, no, but it's kind of like launching a fight with one hand tied behind your back. You know, if you have an online marketing strategy and you're doing it from the U.S. And hitting out at the Indian market, you're not going to be visible. You're not going to be credible. And if someone does find you, they're just going to say, well, you're not really relevant for our market. So without an Indian localized website, you just don't have the credibility to build your brand that you really need to have for a successful international marketing or a successful Indian marketing system. So, I mean, theoretically, yes, you can, but I don't think it makes sense. I hope that wasn't too severe. Thanks, John.
No, it sounds kind of logical. It's a starting block. It does sound in the good order of the process. Well, and that leads us in, Nalin, please, there's one here because you mentioned the Digital India Initiative. Could you say 2 words about that? What exactly is that, please?
So Digital India, this is, India has made its name through the IT industry over the past decade and a half. And Prime Minister Modi has been talking all about this with all the big IT companies either in Silicon Valley or in India, and all of them are visiting India, pushing forward, and this is on his premier agenda that he wants to make digitalization in India as a goal and try to see that he can upward in India through digitalization. So several small and mid-sized startups in India are concentrating now, coming up and getting into the advanced manufacturing, e-commerce and mcommerce. And even last month when the demonetization was announced by Mr. Modi, he said that we have got such a huge knowledge in digital India, so we should be making use of it to see that we speed up the growth and have transparencies. So combined, try to see that you have everyone on the same page. with the digital India. So he wants even the money cash flow to be reduced, and to see that everyone has a bank account, everyone is using their cards, and everyone is using online payment systems. And that is where, as Susanna was telling earlier, there's a huge opportunity coming up in India when you will have to do localization, because many of the people cannot speak English, and you'll have to do it in local languages. So there's a huge e-commerce platform coming up, and I think this will be, in the next 4 or 5 years, definitely going to be one of the key things coming up. And maybe we are going to make one of the future webinars on mcommerce, e-commerce in India, and I hope that everybody will take part to participate in that one.
Nalin, pardon me, Nalin, I think that's a really interesting insight. I think that we should all find out more about that Digital India initiative. I know that the European Union is right now on its European digital agenda, subjects of which I think we all should find out much more. And indeed, Nalin, as you were saying, we should come around and take a deep dive into that e-commerce India in the first quarter of 2017. I think this must be our last question. Susanna, please, a quick one. It's about videos. This is a US company. They're using videos. They're asking, how about videos, their videos in India? What happens?
Good idea. Videos are very useful for search engines and search engine optimization. It's a great way to, and videos also, people don't want to read long things. They like videos. Couple of things about it. If you're going to put it on a local website, make sure that the technology works. So let me give you an example. If you've got a YouTube, then don't put it in China, because YouTube is banned in China. Now, India is more a free marketplace, so YouTube exists, that's fine. I would really recommend, even if it's in English, and even if you want to keep your localized website in India in English, to add subtitles, especially as you know that most of the people you're reaching in English India do not have English as their first language. So add English subtitles or even Hindi subtitles. That's a really effective way of getting extra mileage out of your website, of your local website. Just take the videos from your US or UK, your domestic website, put them onto your local website. It adds a lot to your website. And unlike in China, you don't have to be scared about YouTube. Yeah, that's a fast answer, John.
Yeah, Susanna, that sounds, I like it. It's cost-effective repurposing. Sounds the way to go. Well, look, thank you very much indeed. I'm looking at the time, and I would like to say thank you to Susanna, Nalin, and Sri for really, we were pretty well on agenda. I would like to thank everybody today for participating, for joining us. We hope that you have enjoyed the webinar. We hope that you have had lots of useful information and lots of takeaways as we've gone through, lots of facts and lots of useful pointers as to how to be successful doing business, growing your sales, your brands and your businesses in India, both on and offline. I always like to just pull out a quick factoid. And Susanna did talk about 3 years ago Amazon jumping into the market in 2013, therefore. How about this? The combined sales of India's top 3 e-commerce sites, so that's Flipkart, that's Snapdeal and Amazon. Today, that's 3 years later, they surpass those of the 10 largest offline retailers. I mean, think about that. Think about the implications of that for business, for your business and your opportunities in the Indian market, and really how fast this is moving and how well you could do when you're thinking about doing business in India. Do now please just stay with us 1 or 2 moments longer, because we have a little bit of a survey. When we close down the webinar, there will be a survey, just 6 brief questions enabling us to better serve you, and I will repeat that you will be getting the recording. The slide deck will arrive automatically in your inbox with an email attachment on the Friday. So I want to thank you again. Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, Nalin, and thank you, Sri. I think you've done a great job, a really, really wonderful webinar today, and therefore I'd like, on behalf of us all, to say thank you. That is a big round of applause coming across, and I guess it's also the opportunity to say Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you all. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you again.